Igira the Cruel is a primarily single-target, pick-your-poison type encounter with bouts of cleave. The fight opens up with two mechanics. The first is Blistering Spear. Igira will target a handful of players, indicated by the large circles surrounding them. After a few seconds, Igira will toss a spear at each player, dealing a large amount of Shadow Flame damage to all players within 10 yards, and tethering the targeted players to the spear until it dies. You want to priority cleave these spears down, as the players tethered are trapped inside the blistering torment the spear leaves behind. If they try to leave the area before the spear is killed, they will be dragged back to the center of its radius and be stunned for a few seconds. It's important to note that Blistering Torment did not stack on the PTR. This means you can overlap two spear players to stack their spears, making them easier to cleave down and without worry that they'll tick out to the Blistering Torment damage. The second ability she casts often is Twisting Blade. Igira will face the direction of a random player, and then after a few seconds will shoot out 3 blades in an arc. Make sure to dodge these, and an important note, if you can't move away from where she is facing fast enough, there will be a small gap that will open up as the blades travel outwards. For tanks, make sure you are stacked up for this fight because of Vicious Swing. This is reminiscent of Sludge Fist, and in addition, you'll need to taunt swap every so often when the other tank gets too many Drenched Blade stacks. When the boss reaches 100 energy, she will move towards where she was standing prior to the pull and cast Mark for Torment. This will deal a large amount of raid damage and knock back all players, and then Igira will begin spawning 3 areas of Torment. In addition, while Igira is channeling Mark for Torment, she will begin shooting out Searing Sparks, which are targeted on players. Make sure to move out of these. She also still takes full damage during this time. You might have noticed that around the room, there are 3 corpses with weapons embedded in them. Shortly after Igira casts Mark for Torment, these 3 corpses will have large circles spawn around them. Soaking these circles will grant the boss 1 of 3 additional abilities for the subsequent phase. During this time, she will cast these abilities twice, and will not cast Blistering Spear or gain any energy. Soaking the Axe will give Igira Umbral Destruction. Igira will target the current tank with a Soak Circle which deals a very large amount of Shadow Flame damage to the raid, that is reduced by the number of players who soak. After you soak, you become brutalized, and you will not contribute to subsequent Umbral Destruction casts for that phase. This means that you want to have 2 distinct soak groups set up to prevent a raid wipe. Soaking the Sword gives Igira Smashing Viscera. She will target a player with a circle, and after the debuff expires, leap to their location. You want to move away from where she's leaping, as well as the lines that are created from the circle. In addition, whenever she leaps, she will also deal a chunk of raid damage. In testing, this seemed to be initially targeting the furthest player, but it wasn't consistent every time. If you are initially targeted, you want to try to move out from the raid as far as you can to give people more time to dodge, and then hopefully she targets a tank with a second leap to minimize downtime. Finally, Soaking the Knife will give Igira Heartstopper. Igira will debuff several players with a large healing absorb. When this is healed off, it will deal a large amount of Shadow Flame damage to players within 7 yards, and shoot out Vital Rupture in multiple directions. Vital Rupture are fast-moving orbs that will deal a chunk of damage and apply a nasty dot if you get hit. In addition, if these healing absorbs aren't healed off in time, they will deal big raid damage. Whenever these orbs are soaked, they despawn, so in theory you could have someone pop an immunity and soak if need be. It's important to note that after 10 seconds after you soak one of these circles, you'll get a permanent debuff called Flesh Mortification, which increases the damage you take when you soak by 100%, and if you fail to soak any of the weapons in time, Igira will cast Ruinous End and wipe the raid. Much like the previous fight, when Igira reaches 100 energy, she will gain a stacking 10% damage done buff for the rest of the fight. That about sums up the fight on Heroic. On Mythic, there are a few changes. Twisting Blades will now shoot out 5 blades instead of 3. Igira will now forge 2 weapons during Mark for Torment. She will choose the 2 weapons you did not soak. When choosing which of the weapon abilities to cast, she has a priority list in the ordering of the abilities, which is as follows: Heartstopper, and then Umbral Destruction, and then lastly, Smashing Viscera. This can lead to nasty overlaps where your raid is affected by Heartstopper, but then you need to soak Umbral Destruction. The TLDR is, kill Blistering Spears, dodge Twisting Blades, don't be near tanks to avoid Vicious Swing, make sure to have soak groups pre-assigned for Mark for Torment and Umbral Destruction, move out of Searing Sparks, spread out with Heartstopper and dodge the Vital Rupture orbs, and dodge Smashing Viscera. Thank you for watching, and if you want to learn how to do the next boss, Volcaros, make sure to tune in for the next video.